Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Radhika.
Morning. How are you guys? How is everyone?
Doing great, doing great.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi,
So,
Nimisha. Hi.
ma'am, hi. We'll be just starting it shortly in a minute or so.
No problem.
Meanwhile, we'll just put about, I'll introduce you to my team here. I have written a mail. So, I'm director at Pentagraph. We have co-founders Meghsham Sinkar with us and Anil Bharti. Meg, say hi.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Doing great, doing great.
Anil Bharti here as a co-founder.
Hello.
Anil. Mr. Rahul Mone, he is a chairman of our company. Rahul,
Hi,
sir.
hi, Radhika. Hi.
We have Yogesh with us, who is our senior director.
Hi,
Yogesh,
Radhika.
Hi, Yogesh.
It's always wonderful to hear you out. So, looking forward for today's session.
we have Ashish Joshi as another director at Pentagraph.
Hi.
Ashish,
Can't see him.
Ashish. Okay. We have Pushkar also with us. Pushkar, will you say hi?
Hi, Radhika. Good morning.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
And then we also have Asit with us. Asit,
Hi, very good morning.
Hello.
so in the meanwhile, ma'am, before we start, it's just a 2-minute video which talks about our company, our philosophy. So meanwhile, we'll run this. By the time, I'm sure other participants will be joining shortly.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, make sure please play that. Thanks.
Yeah, just a second. Huh? Nimisha, there's some issue. I think we'll have to skip for some time.
No problem. Then I think, shall we start?
Yeah.
Because
We'll start. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nimisha, director at Pentagraph Partners and host for this session. Welcome to our this month's Pentagraph Pentatalks. This is a special series which we have dedicated to women on account of women today are waking up to more financial responsibilities than ever before. As she begins to play a vital role in leading major walks of life, it is a very important responsibility for them to know how to save, invest, and secure their financial future. It is an honor to have Ms. Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO of Edelweiss Mutual Fund, as our guest speaker for a talk on Way Forward to Financial Freedom for Women. Welcome, Radhika, ma'am.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Ms. Radhika Gupta started her career with global giants McKinsey and AQR Capital and moved to India to start Forefront Capital Management, India's first registered domestic hedge fund. She became the CEO of Edelweiss Mutual Fund in 2017 and is now building this AMC into a bold and solution-oriented company. She is also noted as one of the most powerful women in business by Business Today and Fortune. Today, she will take us through her life journey and give us an insight on women empowerment, financial planning, and decision-making process to attain our final goal of financial independence. Thereafter, we'll have a Q&A session. Meanwhile, all the participants will be on mute. Please share your queries during the session in the chat box. We will take them after this presentation. Once again, welcome, ma'am. Over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nimisha, and the entire team of Pentagraph for having me. And thank you to all of you who have logged in on a Saturday morning on a long weekend. I thought with Zoom there's less enthusiasm these days, but it's always nice. To have people log in and talk to you, especially on a topic which is close to my heart, I'm sure close to Nimisha's heart. And this is coming on the back of course, International Women's Day. I'm really looking forward to the interaction and, hoping to spend some time answering any questions also that I can. But I really thought I would divide the remarks I had over the next 20-25 minutes into three parts. One is, I think, to share with you my own stories from my own home of financial independence, and the stories of women over the generations. The second, I think, is to talk about the need for financial independence, for the woman and for the family. Because it is finally about the family. And the third is, I think, to talk about three simple, investment strategies or ways to think about money if you are a woman at different stages in your career and life. But I thought I would start this, with a couple of personal stories. I do believe that in the case of women, I think, energy carries through across the generations. And I think the first of the three stories I want to tell you is about my grandmother. So my grandmother came from a fairly, my maternal grandmother came from a fairly rich family, but she lost her father very, very early. And she always says that at that time, a girl of my intelligence could have become a doctor. And her regret is that she never became one. But she studied enough, she did her master's, and she finally got a job as a teacher. But she never took it particularly seriously because she got married to my Nana, and he was London educated and he was doing well for himself, etc. Tough times actually hit the family, and my Nana spent most of his career actually not having a job. And my Nani became the breadwinner of the house. And her humble school teacher's salary finally ended up educating three children. She was the first one to actually buy property in the family. And it was a very, stark reminder that life is uncertain one, and that a woman can play when she's educated, when she's literate, and when she's financially independent. She can play an incredible role in the family. So that was an important story that I grew up with. The second story I should tell you is of my mother. So because my grandmother went through what she did, she made sure that, even if it meant saving 10 rupees and not taking a bus home, she would educate her children in public schools, not government schools in Delhi. They grew up in Delhi. And so my mother went to possibly the best school that money could afford them at that point in time. But she decided to marry my father very early. So my mother got married, I think, at 19 or 20. And when she was pregnant with me, she was actually at St. Stephen's College doing her final year exams. And she completed her undergrad. She was a bright student, I mean, at St. Stephen's. And then my father was posted to Pakistan, where I was born, and he was posted to New York after that. Now, when he was posted to New York, my mother's reaction, as any young bride would have it, would be that, I finally got out of India. I've been posted to New York. This is fantastic for me. And, I'm going to really see the city and enjoy Manhattan, etc., etc., after a life of fair hardship. And my grandmother told her one thing which stuck with her. She said, you can see New York, you can enjoy yourself, but you left your education kind of halfway. You only did your bachelor's, And it doesn't matter who your husband is, use this opportunity to complete your master's, and find a way to get financially independent and stand on your own feet. The rule for foreign service officers' wives is that the only jobs they can hold, they can't hold a corporate job because of conflict of interest. Not many people know that. They can only be teachers or doctors, or at least that was the rule back then. So my mother got a master's in education. And incidentally, every country that my father was posted in, and he moved countries every 3 years, my mother worked non-stop, constantly, every 3 years, whether it was Nigeria or whether it was Zambia or whether it was Denmark. She never gave up on the idea of being financially independent. And I think that was because of what my grandmother instilled in her. And when it was my turn to grow up, my parents were hell bent on making sure that I was financially independent, so much so that they told me, we're not saving a rupee for your wedding, but we will make sure that you get the best education that money can buy. Because if you're educated enough, surely we'll be able to figure out your wedding. And that's what finally happened. When I got admission into Wharton, my father and mother were the ones that pushed me, and they said, we'll make the finances work between scholarships and everything else. And I actually ended up funding half my wedding, even though both my father and I could have well afforded it. And so that's the story of how the power of a woman getting financially independent and standing on her feet has an incredible impact through generations. And I'll conclude the third story by telling you that while my mother and grandmother were started to save and they earned, I think investing was not something that they looked at. Just because the awareness wasn't there. I wasn't a great investor, and I don't come from a corporate background. But I started earning when I was 22, 23. And the one good thing I did do was save. That both women have taught me. And I started investing. I started earning in 2005, and bonuses on Wall Street, where I started my career, were pretty good in 2005, 6, and 7. And I started saving also. And investing in 6 and 7. I made terrible money mistakes, which I'm happy to talk about at some point in time. But because I started saving and investing in 2009, when two partners of mine, and both were men, and I decided to come back and form a business. We moved back to India to start this company called Forefront Capital. And SEBI rules are that to start a PMS business, you need about 2 crore rupees. So 60 lakhs per partner. I'd actually saved up that 60 lakhs over the last 3 years. And because I had done it, I didn't have to ask my father or husband or father-in-law or brother or anybody else in my life. Starting a business, good or bad, was a dream, was something personal. But because I had saved and invested the capital, I could do something with it, and I had the freedom. And I think that's what the definition of financial freedom is. It really helps you chase your dreams. And so those are the 3 stories I wanted to tell you. And I'm just going to project a quick presentation as I move to the second segment. And incidentally, since I talked about 3 stories, the picture you see here is actually of it is of 3 generations of women. This is my maternal grandmother. You see my mother there in the pink sari, and you see me. This was taken on my wedding. But it's a very, very special story, and I'm sure each of you in your homes have these incredible stories. And this is a story from this is a picture from when Forefront Capital actually was started. We had a tiny office in an industrial estate in Worli, and I had just moved back from the US. So this is, I think, from 2010. It's about 12 years old. I think even the clothes are from the US. And a journalist had first come to feature Forefront Capital. So this is the first media appearance in life. So I just thought I'd show you that to see how things move. But essentially, I think, why did I tell you these 3 stories? I told you these 3 stories to tell you a little bit about the importance and power of a woman being financially independent. I think we all learned about, women getting literate, having the power to be independent and make their own decisions. I think financial literacy gives you freedom, and freedom is important. Life is extremely uncertain. You don't know what can happen when. That's what I've seen in stories of the family. So it is extremely important to stand on your own feet. And it is extremely important to understand the assets that the family has, that you have to have control of your money. In another context, in COVID, by the way, we've seen so many unfortunate stories. Losing one parent, a parent not being able to work so long, and then the other party just doesn't know what is happening to the family's finances. It's important, whether you're a man or a woman, for both people to be involved and know the family's finances. Incidentally, I think families are also built on goals. And when both people contribute, I think you build, a much better family. I mean, in my own grandmother's case, because she was involved, they worked towards buying a house. So I think financial independence is extremely important. Um, the second thing I would say, and the quote you see here is something that Smriti Irani actually told me at a conference once, which is that if women are smart enough to earn money, they are definitely smart enough to know how to invest it. And one of the reasons in doing so many of these sessions across the country, in talking to young women, older women, women from the north and south and west, women from more privileged arms of society and women from less privileged arms, is this is too technical for me. I don't understand finance. Finance is a man's domain. And I would say this is a bias that we all have in our head. There is a myth, perhaps, that the financial services industry has created, that to be a sharp investor, you need to spend all your time researching stocks. You need to, be the next Warren Buffett. You need to sit in front of Bloomberg terminals. You need to talk technical language. I don't think any of that is true. I think women have everything in it to manage their own money and to save their own money. I told you stories of my mother and grandmother. If I do a poll of people here, I'm guaranteeing you, each of you will have a story of how your grandmother or mother, you saw them manage the house with limited budgets, do it exceptionally well, and yes, to do it without an Excel spreadsheet or cost budgeting or MIS or press release about how efficient they were at their jobs. When we lived in a country called Nigeria for a short period. We are Guptas. So my father used to give my mother some money to manage the house. And Nigeria is a cash economy, so nothing really sits. You don't have credit card expenditure. You didn't back then. So she would manage the house, and she would manage it efficiently and optimally, etc. And of course, she had some money saved over on the side, which she never told my father. It's very common. It was called Guptan. It's called Guptan in our family, meant to be secret. Um, and she actually saved it and put it in one wooden cupboard, because there was no way to go to the bank. And जब एक दिन हमारे घर में चोरी हुई, we realized the quantity of the money that she had saved up was actually very, very non-trivial. Incidentally, this is not only her story. I mean, demonetization, you saw this activity on a much larger scale. So Indian women's capacity to save is unquestionable. And I think to be the next step from saving is investing. I think that step is not a complicated step. To become a smart investor, you need a sense of goals. I think women are extremely goal oriented. And as I said, goals need to be planned for the family. You need to have a sense of patience, which there is no shortage of. I mean, we keep talking about long-term investment, long-term investment. There is no shortage of patience. And you need to have, some orientation about risk and taking smart risks. And I think all of these qualities, all of these behavioral qualities exist in us in, no small quantity. And I'm not even starting to quote the statistics that women make better fund managers, etc. All I'm saying is we've proved for generations that we've had it in us to save. And I don't think there's anything that we don't have in us to invest. I also think the third reason to be financially independent today, and this is my own reality, is that financial independence, what does it do for you? Because ultimately, investing is for a purpose, money is for a purpose, it's not a contest we're trying to win. I feel that money enables dreams. If you're a young girl, perhaps listening to this, you have a dream of doing a startup, you have a dream of doing a master's, it could be any dream. As I said, my own dream was to start a company. And I think having that purpose enables you to exercise your dreams, visualize your dreams without asking people for permission. And that's a really good reason to be financially independent. And I think finally, as I said through my own story, when you educate a woman, I think the impact on, when you financially educate a woman, the impact is on generations. It's not on a single thing. My in-laws come from a city called Mangalore, and Mangalore is known for a lot of young girls who come to Bombay. And the lady who brought my husband up, incidentally, came from a family of five where she was a fifth pass out, but came to Bombay, sort of built everything, got financially independent, now owns a home in Bombay. And because she's been able to do that, by the way, three of her sisters have migrated from Mangalore to Bombay. So in every strata of society, I think when a woman makes progress, financial progress, the whole family makes progress. Women don't just make financial decisions for themselves. They make better decisions for the family. They often make decisions for their parents. They make decisions, in some cases, for the children, for many others. So women affect 70–80% of consumption decisions. And the last reason I would tell you about financial independence is that it's not hard. There are so many resources out there, including the wonderful advisors that are on the call today. There are so many resources to get financially independent. If you have a question, there is an advisor out there who can guide you. So I am not saying you'll be financially independent yourself. Don't understand the basics of asset classes yourself, but realize you're not in this journey alone. There are lots of people out there to help you, and it is okay to seek help. I mean, we are the kind, I hate this stereotype, that don't even hesitate to ask for directions. Sometimes our male friends don't, at least my husband doesn't ask for directions. So this is also a place that we can ask for help. And I do believe that if you ask for help, help is available in plenty. Finally, I'm just going to end with a couple of thoughts on how you should think about investing at different life stages. If you are a young woman, if you are in your middle ages, and as you get closer to retirement. For young women, I think the first and most important thing I would say is start early. You will make mistakes, man or woman, in the investment journey. I made a ton of them, as I said. You will make a ton of mistakes, but the best service you can do to yourself is start early. And it doesn't matter if you start small. If you're 24 and you're earning a small amount, just doing a 500 or 1,000 rupee SIP, starting that habit of saving and investing is extremely powerful, because money and investing is understood in real mistakes, not paper mistakes. So it is extremely important that you just get started. As you start, you will become far more confident. You will realize what works for you. You will realize what doesn't work for you. So that is extremely important. Secondly, I think figure out the difference between saving and investing. I think saving is something we've narrowed down, but force yourself to invest a certain amount every month. Target a number. It could be 5% of my post-tax salary. It could be 10% of my post-tax salary. Could be 10% of my savings. Put a number down and try to meet it. I think one of the reasons SIPs, by the way, work really well is they force you to save, and it's almost like a tax. I mean, the great thing about tax is you have to pay it and you just factor it into your calculations. SIPs for me have worked the same way. So my husband and I have always had this target that each of us, we are both salaried professionals, will save 30% of our post-tax income, and it just goes to SIPs. So put some number down for your investing. Think about the SIP route. As I said, you can assume 30%, 70% of your income and save 30%. That's one easy way. Just put a heuristic out there. And I think the last tip I would have for young women is start with basics. You will just about figure out equities and fixed income. Start with the basic asset classes. So start by moving your bank account money to a liquid fund or a more tax efficient debt vehicle, and start with some SIPs in equity. You have time at this point in time to earn wealth creation, to enjoy the benefits of compounding. So start with a basic SIP in an equity fund. I think if you are in your middle ages, and it's, you can define what middle ages is, perhaps the most thing, and at this point you are probably married, work with your spouse on goals. It is extremely important at this age. When you're young, you perhaps don't have as many goals. You also don't have as many liabilities. By the time you cross your 30s, you will start to have goals. You could have EMIs. You could be thinking about planning children. Work with your spouse to define goals. They can be short-term goals, they can be medium-term goals, and they can be long-term goals. And some of them are more responsible goals, like building a home, and some of them can be fun goals, like taking a vacation. But start by having goals. And as I said, the simplest way to do it is bucket money into three categories: 1 year kind of goals, 3 year goals, and 5 year plus goals. And then once you do that, you can really plan your investments to achieve those goals. So the long-term goals can be achieved through equity. The medium-term goals can be a blend of equity and fixed income. And the short-term goals can be safe instruments. This will give your investments a little bit of course and direction. And you can start using both SIPs if you're a salaried professional, and if you have larger payouts, etc., you can also do lump sums in equity funds. But the real key is to work with your spouse for couple goals. If there are men listening on this call, and the woman of the house is not involved in investments, one simple tip I have, and very practical one, is that once a quarter as a couple, do a meeting. I mean, a formal meeting. My husband and I actually do this, where you review all the finances of the family, put it down on a spreadsheet, including all the bank accounts, assets, passwords. This is great protection. All the nominees, this is great checking the box, if things go wrong, or, things are, unfortunate. So do that. And then just put down the goals. Another little suggestion I have is, you can start making a document as you get more involved on what are your shared financial values. These are the kind of funds we want to do. This is what matters to us with money. These are our goals. Put them down. So my husband and I actually put them down. We say that these are the kind of investments we will not make. For instance, we don't like very locked in investments. We like our money to be available. We put these things down so that we don't fight. Once we've put these rules down, and then, some investment that we didn't do does really well, and we start arguing, we said, okay, but that's not in our rules. So put together a sense of shared goals, shared rules, and sit down and review once a quarter. Both of you will learn from each other. Both of you are giving each other a lot of transparency. It's a simple trick, but it really, really works. And I would repeat, if you're the man of the house who knows a little bit more about finances, the best thing you can do is encourage your partner to join in this exercise. And finally, I think if you are in the retirement phase, of course, it is time to start planning towards retirement. Get a little more conservative, of course. Start doing the math of the kind of lifestyle you will need after retirement. And there are different answers for retirement. I mean, my parents retired. Everybody has a different retirement. Some people earn income after retirement. Some people have liabilities after retirement. Some people actually have it very easy after retirement. So figure that out. Figure out the costs of health insurance. figure out the cost of the kind of lifestyle and know that lifestyle goes up, it doesn't go down. And find ways, start planning for retirement post 60 when you're 45 or 50. So start planning for it early. Get more conservative in your investments. So start using fixed income for investments and work towards regular income. There are great solutions that I'm sure advisors can work with you on how you can get regular income using instruments like SWP or tools like that. So find ways to work towards regular income. That really should be your goal. With that, I'm going to wrap up here. And I'm going to just wrap up with the point that, International Women's Day just passed. And the whole theme of International Women's Day this year was break the bias. Break the bias often refers to all the biases that are held against women and etc. etc. And I was asked a lot of questions about it, and I don't dispute any of those biases or any of the challenges that we have. But we at Edelweiss Mutual Fund put out a video, and I highly encourage all of you to watch it, that said that perhaps the first bias that we need to start breaking is the one that exists inside of us. I can't manage money. I can't do this. If I go out and ask, I'll be seen as too aggressive. Let's stop breaking the biases in our own head. I mean, and then really, as far as finance is concerned, I mean, we have a lady finance minister, a lady SEBI chief, and half our financial institutions at some point, including banks, were run by women. So there's no reason to believe that finance is not in our hands. If the country's finances can be run by a woman, if half the nations can be run by women through COVID, there's no reason that we can't manage money and do a couple of SIPs, right? So with that, thank you guys, and I'll turn it over to you, Nimisha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And it was so relatable and well presented. I mean, you actually took me back to my childhood memories and, made me think why I'm here and what am I doing today is because, so many people have played their role for generations. So thank you so much. And it was extremely well presented. You have covered everything. You've given 3 mantras also for different category of women, young women, middle-aged women, and retiring women. And trust us, I mean, we also go ahead and we implement the all these parameters when we advise. And one most important thing which you pointed out was, documenting over a period of time. So this is one of our very critical parameter which we emphasize with our customers is to document things, talk to your family members, keep everything in place. So a wonderful session, ma'am. So I have one question to ask. So in another 10 years, where do you see women of India in the space of financial world?
Okay, so firstly, I think, so, and there are two parts to this. One is, of course, women as investors. Second is women as professionals in the financial world. I'll cover both. I think on the second, while the numbers are small, as I said, there are reasons to be hopeful. At some point in time, a majority of banks, as I said, were run by women. At Edelweiss Mutual Fund, for instance, we are 25% better. I don't see a 50-50 world 10 years down the line, but I do see a progressing world. And I do think, Nimisha, a younger, and I talk to a lot of young women. A lot of them write into me because of social media or talks. And I do believe that my mother was more aspirational than my grandmother. I was far more aspirational than her. I think my daughter's generation or my children's generation will be far more aspirational. So you see a lot of young women writing in from small towns saying, I want to be a CEO. I actually get these letters. They're leaving their families, pushing their families out of the pressure, building careers in corporate. So I think directionally we are getting there. And I think that's true of women and investing too. There are now lots of conversations happening about why women need to invest. I don't think 20 years ago these conversations were happening. There are lots of online and offline platforms, advisors, there are women only advisors. There's so many platforms that are coming up to enable this. And there is a larger awareness of diversity in general. If you look at it, a theme like ESG, which includes diversity, is becoming prominent. So I actually believe that today, if you are a young woman, a capable, young, ambitious woman, you're probably at an advantage to your male counterparts because so many people are out there wanting you to succeed. People want women in leadership. They care about women as consumers. So when a company like Nika lists, I mean, at least it shows you the power that a female has as a consumer. So I think things are getting better there. You won't see magic in 10 years.
Ma'am, there is so much of noise in and around, Earlier, the challenge used to be to get an information. Today, I would say we are flooded with information. And one of the very basic hesitance that we see across the investors or, women also, when to start, where to invest, will my investment go bad? There is a Ukraine-Russia war. The US Fed has increased the interest rate. Will this be right time, not the right time? So can you give us some message and insight on that? How do we curtail on the noise in and around us?
So firstly, as I said, and I would repeat this before I come to your question, is start. There is no good time to start. There's no bad time to start, but it is important to start, and it is important to start small. And I repeat again, it is okay to make mistakes. Men make mistakes, women make mistakes, humans make mistakes. So it is important to start. That is very important. The second thing is, I agree. There is a lot of noise. If you watch CNBC every day, especially in the last 2 months, you can go insane, man, woman, anybody, right? And a lot of this noise is not relevant to you as a long-term investor, which is why, if you noticed in my presentation, I talked a lot about goals. When you have goals, when you're saving for 7 years because you want to start a business in 7 years, honestly, what Putin did today in Ukraine should not matter to you. You are a long-term equity investor, and over 7 years, if you have invested in good companies and those companies had delivered decent earnings, and most of us know that over 7 years, equity markets have done well. You will focus on goals. So goals are very important because they prevent you from getting distracted. So I would reiterate, focus on goals. And if you have money that you genuinely need in 1 year, it should not be in assets that are affected by Ukraine and Putin and everything that is going on, which is why goal orientation is extremely important. The second thing I would say is that we need to learn to look at our portfolios less. Now, when I say things like these, people are like, but you're a fund manager. I said, I am a fund manager. I'm in the fund management business. Watching portfolios every day is my job. But if you ask me, do I look at my personal portfolio every day? No, I don't look at it more than once a quarter. And I would encourage you guys to do that too. I would, and these days, because of this gadget called the phone, it feels like even if your mutual fund NAV falls once a day, it feels like it falls 7 times a day because you'll get WhatsApp, you'll get some value research alert, you'll get some alert from your advisor, you'll get some alert from your mutual fund, and वो एक ही घाव आपको 10 बार चुभता है. And that's not healthy because it will force you to take action. So I'd encourage you to look at your portfolio less, and you'll be able to do that if you are goal oriented and have done your asset allocation right. So that would be my advice. Otherwise it will drive you insane.
Ma'am, often women are again, associated with investment in terms of gold. So they find gold as one of the best investment. And that's a biasness, we would say, across a product or an asset class, very close to our hearts. So what is your advice on diversification of the asset class and how to go about it?
So one, I am a big proponent for asset allocation and diversification. I do believe everyone needs a portfolio with some amount of Indian equity, some amount of debt, a little bit of gold, a little bit of foreign equity. I mean, that is the best thing that you can do as an investor. Gold is a decent asset class. It's not the only asset class. And I'll make a few points about gold. gold as a static 5 to 10 or small percentage of your portfolio to protect against inflation is good. Gold as a wealth creation long-term instrument is not the solution. So, and why do we like gold? We like gold because of historical bias, because we understand gold. The minute you understand equity, you will feel as comfortable. And the second thing I would say is separate physical jewelry, and this is hard to say, from financial investments. If you want to financially invest in gold, there are a lot of financial products like gold ETF and gold index funds that require you not to worry about breakage, making charges, security, which is a big issue. Separate jewelry out from investments.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we have one question from Meksha. Meksha, please.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
There were research done by Warwick Business School, which shows that return on investments for women were on an average about 1.2% higher than men. So according to you, what are the qualities, I would say top 2-3 qualities of investments women have which makes them better investors?
Okay, so I didn't know this research, but I've heard similar research, and the attribution I've heard is along these lines. One, I think women's understanding of their risk appetite tends to be a little solid. So, investments are also about taking the risk that is right for you and holding that is right for you. And I think women have an ability to grasp that, their understanding of risk and their understanding of goals. And this is something I've heard across the board. Secondly, I think women tend to act less. I think this single fact that you are more long term, because great investment returns are also just about holding on for long periods of time. And I think women, perhaps because we are so busy with the 10,000 things that we have to do in life, or perhaps because we have less of these discussions at parties about my portfolio versus your portfolio, and let me do this and let me do that. And I'm talking strictly anecdotal here. Perhaps we tend to hold better for the long term. And this is something I've seen even in some of the Indian advisors when they tell me their numbers. So I think just holding on longer and a smarter risk in goal orientation, if anyone did this, they would have better outcomes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, a lot of talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Your views and take on it.
Okay. So firstly, I get trolled terribly for my views on cryptocurrency. Firstly, I'm not an expert on cryptocurrency, and I don't invest in cryptocurrency because I believe you should buy asset classes that one, you understand, and secondly, that are regulated. Cryptocurrency till today, and FM has made a statement, is not a regulated asset class in India. The government has just talked about taxing it, and it is not clear what it is regulated by or who it is regulated by. And why is regulation important? Because in finance and financial products, when something goes wrong, you need to have a source of investor protection. We have seen this in many cases with chit funds and emu scams and this and that, and I'm not comparing crypto to them. But you want to be behind a regulated asset class. So I would encourage anyone not to invest in anything until it is fully regulated. Secondly, even after it is regulated, invest in cryptocurrency for the right reason. And the right reason, the common reason for cryptocurrency these days is my friend invested in crypto and he made 50%. Till last night, my maternal uncle was having an argument about why he should not invest in crypto with me. And we've been arguing for 7 months. Thankfully, he's not made the investment. But his sole reason, and he's a very bright guy, for wanting to invest is my friend has made 50% return on this. And that's a bad reason. When you invest in gold, when you invest in debt, when you invest in equity, like when I invest in equity and I buy HDFC Bank, I know why I will make money. If HDFC Bank's profits grow up, etc., I will make money. If it doesn't, vice versa. Why are you going to make money in cryptocurrency? So until you understand any asset class, including crypto, please don't invest in it.
So we should ideally understand the products. It's not only about saving and investing. So as an investor, it's advisable that each one of us go ahead first understand the product. If we don't know, have a discussion with our financial advisors. And like you said, there are so many information available, on Twitter and etc. So we can always refer to those sessions and take a call on it. We'll open the Q&A now for our audience as well. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hands or unmute yourself.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Actually, I don't have any queries because Radhika has really talked my heart very, and each and every point. Some time back, Meksham will agree. I had almost talked the same thing to him, like I really appreciated. Only one point I would like to make, and which I made to Meksham also, is that what we are lacking right now, with my experience also I can say, is that stereotype about women don't understand investment. Yeah. And okay, I'm educated. I think most of us participating today are all aware of. But what about those women, which Radhika had said, talked about her mother or grandmother, who did not have this platform, but they were the best managers of the home, and they knew how to go about. Still, I feel there is a lot of mass who's participating, running the family very well, but they are, not made aware of these things. So according to me, I told Meksham also that if we can emphasize and, emphasize a lot on educating women and in fact, educating men more than women, to get into, changing that mindset is really going to make a difference. And in fact, what I realized is that, because of this mindset, we are not progressing the way we are progressing. Because women really has the capabilities, or Radhika really spoke very well about, So that's what the point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhya.
Yeah.
To share your experience. Hello. We are unable to identify you.
Hello.
Yeah, Meksha.
Radhika ma'am, you want to say something on Dr. Sandhya's or a question, concern?
I think thank you so much, Doctor, for your kind words. And I would agree with you. I think, as I said at the end, a lot of it is bias and stereotype in our head. And at some point, as I said, we have to get past that. You have to find self-confidence in yourself and get past it. And I agree. I think, every young woman in our households, we have the power not only to influence sisters, mothers, etc., who perhaps belong to a more educated class than us. But even people like our house help. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was taking injections for something, and the nurse who came, after 2-3 weeks of coming, she said that, I think you run आप कुछ mutual fund में काम करती हैं. So I said, yes, you figured that out. So she said, will you help me now set up some, कुछ SIP होता है क्या आपका? I said, हाँ. She said, can you help me set up an SIP for my daughter? And I said, why? She said, she'll make more progress than I will. So actually helped her do that. And there's so many of these stories. So I think perhaps there is also greater responsibility on us. Because each of us influences an ecosystem, right? We can't change the whole world, but we have a small ecosystem around us of people who are less privileged, less educated. And as I said, with this nurse, I think we got her to start a 500,000 rupee SIP. Every incremental change that you have makes a difference.
Thanks. Thanks, ma'am.
Radhika, hi. Yeah, Radhika, hi. Rahul Mone here from Pentagraph.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, since see in our working life, probably once you go up the ladder, you work hard, you spend most of the time in office, as what I have observed for so many years now. So how you yourself manage the work-life balance?
I'll tell you, and this is a topic I get asked. So I'll tell you two things, and some of you know I've written a book that's coming out. I've probably devoted a chapter to work-life balance because I get this question a lot. One is, I think, I don't know why only women are asked the question of work-life balance. Even men have that problem. All of us are struggling with work-life balance.
Yeah, but
Secondly,
we are not able to manage, so I am asking you.
I'll tell you, I think smart time management works. And I'll tell you a personal story. So I'm doing this conversation at about 6 months of pregnancy, which some people know, some people don't know. And obviously it's a tricky period from a health point of view. Now, 6 months ago, and talking of biases, I thought that because I'm going to be pregnant, nothing is going to happen. How will I handle the CEO's role? How will I was doing some other projects and vice chairman of Amphi, lots of stuff was going on. And I started reading stories of, and this is the power of stories. I started reading stories of other women CEOs, etc., etc. I'm sitting here 6 months later, Rahul. I go to office, I socialize. I have a book that's releasing in April. I'm running my Amphi role. Everything is happening, and it's just prioritization. It's just firstly telling yourself that this is a bias that is in your head, get it out, and I can do it. And secondly, I actually operate on a spreadsheet. So I write down these are 5 things that are important to me, and nothing else matters. And the whole week, every night, I look at it and I say, am I making progress on these 5 things? And it could be doing a house, it could be running Amphi, whatever it is. And it works out with a little bit of help, the right support system. And I grant that I'm extremely privileged. And I think finally, inner self-confidence, it all works out.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yogesh?
Hi, Radhika. First of all, thanks a lot for extending your valuable time to discuss this critical topic. So my question is, when it comes to wealth distribution piece or a succession plan, I think most of the time women are excluded while discussing this particular part. So do you think that it is also a very, very critical part for every woman to understand?
It is, and I think it leads to less fights when the succession event happens, which is why I think one, dotting the I's and T's in terms of nominees, wills, etc. earlier rather than later is good. Earlier rather than later is good. Secondly, I think having open conversations, you have to make the woman, if a woman is part of the family, she has to be part of the discussion around succession. She has to be part of the discussion with her father around what the assets she's going to inherit is, and with her husband as she has children about that. So I think you have to make women, there is, when you don't make us part of the conversation, there will be an argument later, because at some point someone will find out and someone will raise a question. But if you make us part of the discussion at an early stage, I think it's a much better outcome.
Thanks, Radhika.
Hi, ma'am. This is Anil Bharti from Pentagram only. I just want to have your insight or your opinion that you have said very rightly that the Indian woman is very excellent in saving, but the saving is not getting channelized into investment. That's a big problem here in India. They will keep money in the boxes, almiras here and there, but that is not growing. That's a big issue for them, because if your money is not growing, then the future goals or your requirement may not be fulfilled. So would you like to give some light on it or your opinion?
So I think one is you have to realize that India is a society. I mean, our own whole, forget women. See, women will follow, and the women's experience will mirror what society's experience will mirror. Even today, your equity mutual fund or your mutual fund penetration in India is probably 4-5% when the world average is 50%. So, एक तो आपका as a collective aggregate society, आप अभी बहुत पीछे हो. We today are a more privileged lot. We are financial services people, so we talk mutual fund and we talk SIP. But as a collective society also, There's so many people, men and women, who are still traditional investors, etc., etc. Secondly, I think doctor mentioned this. The journey from savings to investment, I think, has been held back for a couple of reasons. One is inner bias. That's probably the largest single reason that people don't go out and invest. That I can't do this. And secondly, that what happens if things go wrong. There also, I think people need to realize there's a lot more help out there. One of the best services for women entering capital markets is actually the prevalence of more women in markets. So you have more people like in Nimisha, you have more women financial advisors. I think that will really help, because when you're having a conversation sitting across the table, it's perhaps sometimes more comforting, and that bias goes away when you have a woman across the table. So I think women financial advisors themselves are too small, and they will make a tremendous role in bringing this forward. So some of it is bias and laziness. Some of it is lack of women financial advisors. Some of it is where India is in its evolving stages. But I'm telling you, I truly believe this.
Disconnect हो गया Mirsha?
I think ma'am got disconnected. Looks like.
Network issue.
Yeah.
You can't hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there
Yes.
was. Yeah, okay.
Network issue, sorry. No, I was telling you a funny story. I think this is changing even with the older generation. I told you about my mother, and for years she hasn't been involved in the family finances. I think 5 years ago, when I became mutual fund CEO, she calls me every night. Every day she wants to learn about one small finance concept. So first she started learning कि FD और bond mutual fund में क्या फर्क है. Then she started learning कि direct equity और इसमें क्या फर्क है. Then she started learning little bit of tax. And she started asking me these things, and sometimes she wouldn't grasp it. So the same thing 4 or 5 times. Then she started learning what a dividend was. 2 years ago, when COVID started, she started sitting down with my father and she started insisting that he tell her where all the investments are. Then she got a spreadsheet of her own made. So I think as more conversations are rising, forget the younger generation, older generation is also starting to change.
Do we have more questions? So, ma'am, then we'll conclude with the session today. Our takeaway from this session is we are already saving, which is quite evident. So we need to set our goals and invest, make joint and informed decision, ask for advice as and when it is required, go out for professional help, contact your financial advisors, your bankers, your wealth managers, and seek their advice. Focus on your goals, reduce on the noise in the market. Document your financial information, review them time and again jointly, and start early. There's no time to think and then start. You can just start as and when you feel it's right. You can just go ahead. And absolutely, like the last one you said, there's absolutely no age bar to learn. So don't hesitate, just learn, right? And thank you so much. And I'm sure with all these things, we will be mastering the financial freedom, and we'll be true enabler in terms of individual freedom also. So once again, thank you, Radhika ma'am, for such a wonderful session, taking off time for all of us. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.